Brothers and sisters, we are gathered here today not for comfort but for clarity. We were told, not by fortune tellers or dreamers, but by those who understood the systems at work, that a time would come when truth would be treated like treason, and the lie would be dressed in $1,000 suits smiling on our television screens. We were warned that the future would not arrive quietly. It would come like a thief, dressed as progress but built on profit. And now we are living in that so-called future. Look around you. They said technology would set us free. But instead of liberation, we've got surveillance. Instead of knowledge, we've got manipulation. They said unity, but gave us division. They said hope, but built more prisons. They said change, but the same hand still signs the checks, still writes the laws, still owns the media, still builds the cages. Now tell me, who profits from our confusion? Who benefits when we hate each other over skin, over language, over flags, while the ones in power eat well and sleep even better? That's not an accident. That's strategy. We were told that the system doesn't need to chain your body if it can conquer your mind. And isn't that what we see today? A people hypnotized by screens, trained not to question, taught to obey, and addicted to comfort. They buy our silence with entertainment and our loyalty with fear. But here's the deeper truth: the future we were warned about is not coming. It's here. The warning signs are no longer warnings, they are facts. The police state isn't forming, it has already formed. The lies aren't creeping in, they've been institutionalized. And freedom. Freedom has become a slogan, not a reality. The question is no longer, is it coming? The question is, what will we do now that it's here? We can no longer afford to whisper truth in shadows. We must shout it in the light. We must teach our children that justice is not given, it is taken. That peace without dignity is not peace, it is submission. We must ask ourselves who controls the food on our table, who controls the education in our schools, who controls the bullets in our neighborhoods and the bailouts on Wall Street. And why is it that every time we rise, every time we question, every time we organize, we are silenced, criminalized, or bought off? We were told to watch the hands that sign the treaties and the hands that hold the guns, because sometimes they are the same hands. We were told once in no uncertain terms that if we didn't change the path we were on, we would arrive at a destination built not for the people, but for the power hungry. That the institutions being shaped around us weren't being created for justice or equality, but for control. And here we are now, not standing at the edge of that warning, but living inside it. This is not prophecy any longer. It is our present reality. The signs that were once called warnings, predictions, possibilities have hardened into facts, into the steel and concrete of our neighborhoods, into the silent surveillance watching from every street lamp, into the quiet censorship of voices that challenge the system. The future warned about is no longer approaching. It has already arrived. It's not in the headlines of tomorrow, it's in the patterns we've come to accept today. Walk outside and you'll see it. Not in the smoke and fire of a war zone, but in the cold efficiency of a system that keeps millions working themselves into the ground while a handful soar beyond the reach of any law, any accountability. You see it in the way people scroll through news that no longer shocks them, in how death and exploitation have become just another part of the feed. You see it in the child who learns more from algorithms than from their teachers, in communities where silence grows deeper than hope. The air we breathe is filled not with the scent of freedom, but with the dust of collapsed promises. The future we were warned about doesn't look like a dystopian movie. It looks like the world we quietly accept as normal. The real danger isn't that the future arrived, the danger is that it arrived quietly. No grand announcement, no thunder or lightning. It crept in while we were distracted, entertained, pacified. The chains weren't thrown on us with violence. They were slipped on gently, disguised as convenience, comfort, entertainment, security. We were told that a time would come when the system wouldn't have to beat you into submission if it could convince you that submission was safety. And what do we see now? A society where people volunteer their privacy, their data, their thoughts, because it's easier than questioning. Where people defend the very systems that oppress them because they've been trained to see authority as protection and dissent as danger. We were told to watch the shift from visible oppression to invisible control, and now we live under it. Not in fear of a dictator on a balcony, but of policies passed in silence, of corporations that move faster than laws, of media that blends truth and manipulation into a narrative that keeps us calm and obedient. The future didn't storm the gates. It walked through the front door while we debated meaningless distractions. It sat at our table. It dressed like us, spoke our language, made us believe it was progress. And while we celebrated the illusion, it built walls around us made of policy, of debt of fear. Look closely. You'll see a society where freedom is advertised more than it is lived, where democracy is a brand, not a practice, where choices are made for us before we even think to ask the question. They warned us of a time when laws would be written not for the people, but for profits. When justice would be priced out of reach. When truth would be something you'd have to dig for, not something offered freely. They told us that if we weren't vigilant, the tools of liberation would be turned into tools of domination, that education could become indoctrination, that healthcare could become a market, that housing could become speculation. And here we are. We were told the media would not be a mirror, it would be a mask, that it would show us what they wanted us to see, that it would make villains out of those who resist and saints out of those who exploit. And isn't that what we live with? The truth buried under algorithms, the dissenting voice framed as danger, the poor painted as lazy, the rich as saviors. That wasn't a guess, that was a warning. And it wasn't about the future, it was about what comes next if we stay asleep. The future isn't some far-off horizon. It's the surveillance camera blinking over your door. It's the child learning to obey before they learn to think. It's the neighborhood without clean water while billions are spent on foreign wars. It's the man working 3 jobs who still can't afford shelter, while the banks celebrate record profits. It's the protester labeled a threat and the war criminal honored with a statue. It's the phone in your pocket listening more than it speaks. The future warned about is the now that surrounds us. And yet so many walk as if they are still waiting for it to arrive, still hoping someone will tell them when to act, when to resist, when to wake up. But the time for waiting has passed. The question is no longer whether we'll arrive at the future we were warned about. We're already there. We are standing inside the consequences of silence, of compromise, of believing that justice can wait. Every moment we fail to see that is a moment deeper into the design. The architecture of oppression no longer wears uniforms, it wears smiles. It sells us dreams while locking away the tools to bud them. It distracts us with celebrity while robbing us of community. It teaches us to fear our neighbor while trusting institutions that have never served us. That is not a glitch in the system. It is the system, and it's functioning exactly as intended. There was a time when chains were visible. They clanked against the ground, dragged across bodies, and bruised skin. Back then, everyone knew who was free and who wasn't. Today, those chains are invisible. They exist in the mind. The system realized that to keep a people down, you don't need whips when you have wires, you don't need overseers when you have algorithms, and you don't need walls when you have ideas planted deep in the heads of the oppressed. Systems of control no longer scream, they whisper. They don't invade, they persuade. They work not through force, but through influence. That's what makes them more dangerous. Because if a man doesn't believe he's in a cage, he'll never try to break out. We live in a time when control has become subtle. You don't need to beat a people if you can make them beat each other. You don't need to lie to them if you can flood them with so much information they can't tell truth from fiction. You don't need to stop them from marching if you can convince them that marching changes nothing. This is not the old form of oppression. It is newer, slicker, sharper. It speaks with the voice of the people while serving the interests of power. It divides people by race, by class, by gender, by religion, then watches them fight while the ones pulling the strings sit back untouched. It weaponizes identity and turns unity into a threat. You can see the manipulation in the media that sells fear to the public like candy. Every headline designed to provoke emotion instead of thought. Every debate framed not around justice but around ratings. The media is no longer a source of information. It is a machine built to shape opinion, to guide belief, to train obedience. And the voices that challenge that machine are labeled dangerous, radical, or unpatriotic. That is how the system controls dissent, not by outlawing it, but by drowning it in ridicule and distortion. That's how you make the people distrust their own power. Division is the most powerful tool of the oppressor. And in today's world, that division doesn't just come through guns or gates. It comes through hashtags, through comment sections, through platforms designed not to connect us, but to addict us, through echo chambers that feed our rage while isolating us from anyone who disagrees. That's not technology failing, that's technology doing exactly what it was designed to do. Keep us distracted, keep us dependent, keep us believing that we are free while being watched, tracked, and sold every second of the day. They say we have freedom of speech, but only if it fits inside the algorithm, only if it sells, only if it doesn't disrupt the system too much. Say the wrong truth and you'll find yourself erased, shadowed, banned, demonetized, defamed. This is how control is maintained, not by dragging people to prison cells, but by dragging their voices into silence. You don't need a dictatorship to crush rebellion anymore. You just need to make sure rebellion can't go viral. The system has trained people to fear the wrong enemies. We fear immigrants more than billionaires. We fear the poor more than the powerful. We fear each other more than we fear the ones exploiting us. That's not a coincidence. That's a campaign. That's a deliberate strategy. Because if we ever turned our eyes toward the real architects of our suffering, their house of cards would crumble overnight. But instead, We are taught to hate the reflection of our own struggle in others. And that's how control wins, when the oppressed fight among themselves while the oppressor profits from every blow. Education is no longer designed to teach people how to think. It teaches them what to think. Schools train obedience, not critical thought. They produce workers, not revolutionaries. They teach history like a bedtime story, smoothing over the blood and the chains, the lies and the theft. They leave out the part where those in power were rarely the heroes and often the villains. That's how you keep a people docile. You rob them of knowledge. You disconnect them from their past. You erase their memory so thoroughly that they can't even imagine a different future. Even religion, something once meant to liberate the soul, is often co-opted to pacify the spirit, used not to uplift the people, but to instruct them to wait. Wait for justice in the next life. Wait for heaven while enduring hell. Wait for miracles while tolerating misery. That is not spirituality. That is sedative. That is control repackaged as holiness. And it works, because a people who believe their suffering is sacred are less likely to challenge the systems that cause it. Economic systems have become temples of manipulation. The promise of opportunity is dangled like a carrot on a stick, always just out of reach. Millions work their fingers to the bone for crumbs while a handful hoard more than entire nations. And yet, the workers are told that their poverty is a failure of effort, not of structure. They are blamed for being exploited, shamed for being underpaid, conditioned to believe that if they suffer, it is because they deserve to. That is the deepest manipulation of all, when a person blames themselves for the chains they never forged. And the saddest part is, people defend these systems. They defend their own oppression because they have been convinced that without it there would be chaos. They defend billionaires who exploit them. They attack unions that try to protect them. They distrust movements that fight for them. They laugh at radicals who demand better. Because the system has made comfort more valuable than justice, routine more desirable than change, fear more powerful than hope. That's not just manipulation. That's mental colonization. That's what happens when the system doesn't just control your labor, but your imagination. Control is no longer about violence. It's about suggestion. It's about repetition. It's about the slow, quiet erosion of belief until the people no longer know what they're fighting for, or if they should even fight at all. Control now lives in the subconscious. It whispers through every advertisement. It sings through every celebrity endorsement. It infects language, reframes struggle, mocks resistance. And once it lives there, deep in the minds of the people, it doesn't need to lift a finger to maintain power. The people will do it for them. Freedom is a word often thrown around like confetti, used in speeches, etched into monuments, written in constitutions. But what they don't tell you is that freedom without dignity is not freedom at all. It's a leash made of silk. It's a prison with velvet walls. It is submission dressed up in the language of liberty. They give you just enough space to move, but never enough to escape. They let you speak, but only if you say nothing that threatens their interests. They let you vote, but only between two hands of the same body. And when you rise up and demand real change, they remind you exactly how much power you never had to begin with. That's not freedom. That's control with a smile and dignity. Dignity is the one thing they can never hand you. It must be claimed, fought for, demanded. They will give you handouts and call it help. They will give you loans and call it opportunity. They will give you slogans and call it solidarity. But what they won't give you is power. They will never give you the keys to the house they built on your back. They will tell you to wait, to be patient, to trust the process. But justice does not operate on anyone's clock, but those who demand it. There is no such thing as waiting for liberation. Liberation does not come with permission. It comes with action. It comes with courage. It comes with the decision that enough is enough. You can't ask politely for a system to stop choking you. You have to remove the hands from your throat. We are told from a young age to respect authority, to trust those in charge, to believe that the system has our best interest at heart. But how can a system built on stolen land, stolen labor, and stolen lives ever deliver justice? How can a system that profits from our pain ever be expected to end it? You can't reform what was designed to exploit. You can't reason with institutions that see your suffering as a business model. You can't beg a machine to stop running. You either shut it down or it runs over everything in its path. And yet, many still believe that change will come by appealing to the same power that created the problem in the first place. Dignity means not accepting crumbs when you built the table. It means refusing to be grateful for survival when you were promised life. It means standing up even when your legs are shaking, even when the room turns against you, even when they label you dangerous for daring to speak truth. They will call you radical, angry, ungrateful. But that's what they always call those who refuse to be silenced. They called it rebellion when we refused to be enslaved. They called it violence when we fought back against brutality. They called it terrorism when we demanded sovereignty. But what they really fear isn't the action. It's the spirit behind it. the spirit that says we are no longer waiting, the spirit that says we are no longer asking, the spirit that says we will not live without dignity, no matter the cost. There is no freedom in poverty. There is no freedom in cages. There is no freedom in working 3 jobs just to afford rent. There is no freedom in fearing police more than criminals. There is no freedom in walking past boarded-up schools and overfunded jails. There is no freedom in watching your people die while billionaires launch rockets into space for fun. Freedom without dignity is a lie. It is a photo op. It is a sales pitch. It is a carefully choreographed performance meant to convince the masses that progress is happening even as the chains remain firmly in place. Dignity means control over your life. It means the ability to determine your destiny, to speak without fear, to live without exploitation. It means not having to trade your soul for a paycheck. It means not having to bury your dreams to survive another day. It means walking down the street without being seen as a threat. It means knowing that your children have a future, not just a sentence. And when that dignity is denied, no amount of symbolic gestures will make up for it. No flag, no anthem, no holiday can fill the empty space left by the absence of justice. Justice must be taken, not given. Because power never gives up anything voluntarily. It must be challenged, disrupted, dismantled. And that makes people uncomfortable, especially those who have benefited from the silence. But discomfort is the beginning of awakening. And when people begin to wake up, to see clearly, to move collectively, that's when real change begins. Not in the halls of power, but in the hearts of the people who refuse to accept lies any longer. They want you to believe that resistance is futile, that fighting back is dangerous, that organizing is criminal. But the truth is, they fear those things precisely because they work. They fear a people who know their worth. They fear a people who walk with their heads held high, even when the world tries to drag them down. They fear a people who do not wait for validation from their oppressors. And that fear is the only honest thing they've ever shown us. Dignity is not just about how you are treated. It's about how you carry yourself, even in the face of injustice. It's about refusing to let the system define your worth. It's about demanding more than survival. It's about breaking cycles, tearing down walls, and speaking truth, even when your voice trembles. It's about loving your people enough to fight for them. It's about loving yourself enough to know you deserve more. They will try to convince you that your value lies in how quiet you are, how obedient you are, how well you fit into the mold they made for you. But your dignity lies in your refusal to be molded, in your refusal to bow, in your refusal to forget where you came from and who you are. We were never meant to be free under their rules. We were never meant to thrive under their terms. So we must build new rules, set new terms, not ask for a seat at their table, but flip it and build our own, one rooted in truth, in equity, in humanity. Because freedom without dignity is slavery by another name. And justice that must be begged for is not justice at all. Silence is not neutral. It is not harmless. It is not innocent. In a world built on systems of oppression, silence is a weapon, not in the hands of the oppressor, but in the mouths of those who should be speaking. Every moment we keep quiet while injustice grows louder. We are not standing still. We are stepping back. We are surrendering space. We are giving permission. When truth becomes dangerous to speak, silence becomes betrayal. And we have been silent far too long. Silent in our classrooms while lies are taught as history. Silent in our workplaces while exploitation is renamed opportunity. Silent in our communities while our people are pushed out, locked up, or gunned down. We've whispered truth in the shadows while lies scream from the loudspeakers. And every time we chose comfort over confrontation, every time we chose approval over accountability, we betrayed the struggle that came before us. There is no such thing as a neutral position in the face of oppression. You are either resisting it or reinforcing it. There is no middle. The system depends on our hesitation, our fear, our distraction. It thrives when we doubt our voice, when we question our right to speak, when we convince ourselves that someone else will do it, someone else will say it, someone else will rise. But power does not fear the one voice. It fears the chorus. It fears the collective roar of people who have nothing left to lose and everything to gain. That's why the system teaches you to keep your head down, to stay in your lane, to wait your turn. Because when you rise, others rise with you. And that chain reaction is what they fear most. Truth is not always welcomed. It is not always applauded. It will not always earn you applause or a platform. Sometimes it will earn you exile. Sometimes it will cost you your job, your reputation, even your safety. But the cost of speaking truth is nothing compared to the cost of silence. Because silence allows the lie to grow roots. It allows injustice to become policy. It allows the unthinkable to become routine. The lie thrives in the vacuum where courage should have spoken. And so long as we stay quiet, so long as we prioritize politeness over principle, we are complicit in the very systems we claim to oppose. History is not made by those who stayed silent. It is made by those who spoke when it was hardest. It is shaped by those who said what no one wanted to hear, but what everyone needed to know. the ones who spoke even when it meant standing alone, the ones who refused to bite their tongues while their people bled, the ones who risked comfort to shatter illusion. They did not wait for permission. They did not wait for approval. They understood that silence protects the powerful, but truth liberates the oppressed. And they chose liberation even when the world turned against them. You cannot love justice and fear truth. You cannot fight oppression and still stay silent when it shows up in your home, in your job, in your school, in your government. Because truth is not just a principle. It is a responsibility. When you see something wrong, your silence is not just absence. It is consent. Your quiet becomes a vote cast for the status quo. And those in power count on that. They bank on your hesitation. They invest in your fear. They know that all they have to do is scare you into stillness, and they can continue their work without interruption. We live in a time where truth has been dressed in shame, where telling the truth is treated like disruption, where asking questions is seen as rebellion. And they want you to believe that to speak boldly is to be dangerous, to be divisive, to be radical. But what's more dangerous? The truth that challenges power, or the lie that protects it? What's more divisive? The voice that calls out injustice, or the silence that allows it to grow? What's more radical? A people demanding their rights, or a system that profits from their suffering? We've been trained to ask the wrong questions. It's time we ask better ones, and then answer them with action. The world does not need more spectators. It does not need more silent observers of suffering. It needs witnesses who are willing to speak, even if their voice shakes. It needs warriors who fight not with fists, but with facts, not with weapons, but with words. Because silence will not save you. Silence will not protect you. Silence will not change the world. It will only preserve the world as it is. And if the world as it is remains unchanged, the future becomes a mirror of the present, broken, brutal, unequal. When the powerful speak lies loudly and the oppressed whisper truths quietly, guess which story gets believed? Guess which story gets written? Guess which story becomes history? That's why speaking is not just about resistance. It's about legacy. It's about writing our truth into the fabric of the world so they can't erase us, can't rewrite us, can't pretend we were never here. Every time we speak, we take back our narrative. Every time we speak, we tear down the false story they've built on our silence. There is no freedom in silence. There is only delay. There is only the slow erosion of hope, the steady shrinking of our will, the dull ache of regret. And for what? For approval, for applause, for a seat at a table never meant for us. That is not a life. That is not liberation. That is not revolution. That is compliance with a smile. They will tell you to calm down. They will tell you to wait. They will tell you now is not the time. But if not now, then when? If not you, then who? If not here, then where? Silence has never moved history. Silence has never freed a people. Silence has never saved a life. It is only truth, hard, honest, unrelenting truth, that can tear through the illusion and shake the system to its core. And that truth must come from us, from our mouths, from our souls, from our refusal to stay quiet in a world built to keep us that way.